Thank you very much, Helena, for the kind introduction, and thank you very much for everyone to have me here today. In the first presentation, I will focus on ageism, digital literacy, and the European frameworks, as Helena mentioned. If I speak too quickly, especially the interpreters, please let me know. I unfortunately have a tendency to do so. I try to refrain myself, but just let me know. Okay, great. Just to give you a little bit of insight into who Age Platform is. So we are a nonprofit organization and with about 110 members from European member states. And we focus on advocacy and project work in different domains, from pensions to health to digitalization. We have, as I mentioned, about 110 members, are organized in 7 thematic task forces and are trying to reach out through various means, online and offline, to older people in Europe. How do we work? We have a general assembly with all our member organizations and a council of administration for the states, and an executive council committee that is steering the work of our organization. And as mentioned, the 7 task forces where we try to focus on areas that are of particular importance for older people. I'm sorry? Okay. All right, sorry. In terms of organization that are our members, we have both organizations of older people that are advocating for themselves, which is the majority of our members. And we also have some organizations that are for older people, service providers, such as, for example, the Red Cross. And what we also look into is there's different organizations of federations that are consisting themselves of member organizations that are bigger, such as the BAXO in Germany, and also smaller organizations such as the Older Women's Network from the Netherlands, that are consisting of older women themselves. Our members mainly join us because they, through us, get to liaise with European officials, receive information about the EU and global policies, to work together in the task forces on specific themes, also to train in capacity building activities, participate in research and innovation projects, and also share their work and activities through the Age Network. And our vision is very similar also to Hellas 50+ vision in having, who is a member of Age, actually a very active and wonderful member of our organization, is that we have an inclusive society for all ages based on solidarity and cooperation between generations, where everyone is empowered to participate fully and enjoy life in full respect of their rights while fulfilling duties and responsibilities. So we try to voice and defend the interests of older people in Europe while raising awareness on the issues that concern them most, to also improve the dialogue and cooperation between members and the European institutions, and disseminate information to our members while also enhancing the cooperation with other NGOs in the European Union. So that is just to give you a bit of an insight into what Age Platform does. Coming now to the topic of digital literacy and ageism, and it's a bit of a step back, but it is something that can unfortunately not really be uncoupled from each other, because ageism has such an important impact on digital literacy of older people. So just to briefly, what is ageism? So ageism is how we think about older people, so the stereotypes we have, how we feel about older people, certain prejudices that we may hold, and acting towards older people being discriminated against because of their age. And when we look at digital literacy and technology specifically, it's often that people are thinking, oh, older people, they are not able to use modern technologies. They don't want to use older technologies. But also older people themselves saying, oh no, I'm too old to learn to use a smartphone. This is not for me. And this is, of course, a huge barrier, that if I myself think that I am not able to use something, or if other people think some technology is not for me, then this affects the design, the adoption, and the use of digital technology. And in that sense, we need to rethink our understanding of what are the digital technologies that older people want and need. Also, that older people have abilities, of course, to use digital technology, and how older people are included and have a say in the design process. Because often it's also that something is designed without ever involving an older person that is absolutely not adapted to the need or want of what an older person would want in technology. And this is also here the different levels. We see it starts basically, if at the design level, I don't consider and involve older people what they need. And on the social environmental level, society thinks, or many people think, oh, older people, the technology is not for them. And if I myself then also think, oh, I'm an older person, technology is for younger people, that's not for me, then of course this impacts the adoption and the use of digital technology. So my question is, what can we do about this? I mean, ageism is a general problem that is not only related to digital technologies, but in this specific instance, what could be done against it if we talk about digital literacy? One of the things is awareness raising and training. So to really empower individuals of all ages to access and use digital technology. And there is multiple ways to do that, to ensure that there is access to lifelong learning. It's a big problem that a lot of projects or programs on digital technology are for people that are younger and or in the workforce, but not necessarily for older people. Foster the intergenerational contact and learning, which is something that Chelsea has also mentioned in the digital project. Intergenerational contact and learning is really helping in facilitating this. The trainers need to receive training on inclusive and ageism-free teaching. And last but not least, it's really crucial that intergenerational programs are tailored so that it's taken into consideration that older people are not a homogeneous group. You have a big heterogeneity of people who have worked their entire lives with technologies and just might want to get a bit of a refresher in media literacy with digital tools. And you may have people who have never worked with any form of technology. It's also important then that facts on aging are included, and that learning is not just a person telling an older person what to do, but really have experiential learning and positive learning in this. So summing up for the ageism and digital technology, to improve digital literacy and increase the use and adoption of digital technology among older persons, it is important to eliminate the stereotypes, prejudice, and discrimination based on age, rather than accepting aging per se as a barrier to the use and adoption of digital technology. I maybe should have mentioned this at the beginning of my presentation, but because I have quite a long presentation, if there is any questions that you have, please just unmute yourself and let me know, and I'll be happy to also just take questions or clarifications during the presentation. Okay. Next part is asked to also have a bit on the framework, so the digital competence framework for citizens. This is a framework in the European Union, which offers a tool to improve citizens' digital competence. And it is implemented in various domains, education and training, lifelong learning, inclusion, employment. And it's a theoretical framework, but it is implemented in practice. And if you're interested in looking into it a bit more, there is an overview of 30 case studies and practical tools of how this theoretical framework is implemented in various European countries. And just to give you an example, the Italian region of Emilia-Romagna used this theoretical framework to design its digital literacy courses, targeting citizens who do not use the internet, among them many older people. and to produce a set of learning resources that are organized in books and guided practices. But there's many, many more. This is just one of the examples. So what does the framework look like? There's 5 big areas: information and data literacy, which is looking at articulating information needs, retrieving data, information and content, also to judge the relevance of a source in its content, and how to store, manage, and organize digital data. In the second one, communication and collaboration. This is all the skills that are needed to interact, communicate with digital technologies, participate in society through public and private digital services. In terms of content, digital content creation, this relates to skills that are creating and editing digital content, improving and integrating information, and understanding how also copyright and licenses are to be applied. So to give a bit of an understandable instruction for computer systems. And another area that's really important is safety, because you need to know how to protect devices, content. Personal data and privacy have been huge discussion issues in the European level and globally. It's really important to protect also your physical and psychological health when transacting online, for social well-being and social inclusion, and just to be aware of the impact of digital technologies and their use. And last but not least is problem solving. So to see how to use digital tools to innovate processes and products, keep up to date, identify needs and problems. So these are the 5 big areas. And then there's 21 key components spread across those 5 areas. For information and data literacy, browsing the internet, searching and filtering data is important as much as evaluating data, managing information and digital content. For communication and collaboration, it's key to interact through a variety of digital technologies, to share through digital technologies, data, information, digital content with others, then to engage in citizenship through digital technologies. This means that you participate in society through the use of public and private digital services, collaborate through digital technologies in collaborative processes, and then netiquette. So netiquette is like to be aware of the behavioral norms and know how when you are using digital technologies, and to adapt the communication strategies to specific audience, being aware of cultural and generational diversity in digital environments as well. And last but not least, managing your own digital identity or multiple digital identities to be able to protect your own reputation and deal with the data that is produced. For digital content creation, it's about developing digital content in different formats and also to express yourself through digital means. Then the second point, to integrate and re-elaborate digital content, meaning that you modify, refine information and content into an existing body of knowledge to create something new and original. As I already mentioned, for copyright and licenses, it's important to understand what can be done, how to apply data, information, and digital content. And programming is to plan and develop a sequence of understandable instructions for computing systems. So this is quite advanced in terms of digital content creation, actually. Okay. For safety, the first step is to protect the devices that you operate with, to understand the risks and threats in digital environments. I think this is also something Liz was referring to earlier, that it's just very important to know how to transact safely online, to protect your personal data and privacy. So which data you can share, which identifiable information will be online if you use certain services as well, and how your personal data can be used. A big important point for everyone, but also for older people in particular, is then also protecting health and well-being, because it's able to the ability to avoid health risk and threats while being online, and to make sure that you're protecting yourself from possible dangers in digital environments such as cyberbullying. And last but not least, on a more sustainability aspect, to be aware of the environmental impact of digital technologies and their use. Okay. And as the last big area is problem solving. So for solving technical problems is to be able to identify technical problems when operating devices, from troubleshooting to solving more complex problems, identifying needs and technological responses. So to adjust and customize digital environments to your own personal needs. And then to creatively using digital technologies so that you engage individually and collectively in processes to understand problems in digital environments. And last but not least, to identify digital competence gaps. So to understand where are your own needs and what you would need to improve or update to be able to fulfill your own needs, but also to support others in their digital competence development. So those are the 5 big areas that are split into 21 competencies. And then these are further put into 8 proficiency levels. And examples are given. I'm not going to go through all of these in detail, but just to so there's these 8 different levels, starting from level 1 to level 8, which is from the foundations to the highly specialized. And then there is different examples, such as if we look at the first area of information and data literacy and the first competence, which was about browsing, searching, and filtering data, information, and digital content. An example for the first basic level in the area of learning is that a person who has this skill should be able to prepare a short report on a specific topic with the help from a teacher, trainer, other person, so that that person is able to identify websites, blogs, and digital databases from a list in a digital textbook or literature, that they can also identify literature on the report topics in these websites, and use a list of generic keywords and tags in this digital textbook to be able to which is useful to finding literature on the report topic. So this is, the framework is quite broad. It is also, as I said, it can be applied in different contexts, not just for older people, but it is also very applicable to digital literacy in older people. So there is this report that I also I've shown with in the very first page, basically the digital competence framework for citizens, which provides a really good overview of what are the different proficiency levels with examples. So to make it a bit more operational, this theoretical framework. Okay. That's it for the framework. And then, because I was also asked to have some overview on the digital literacy in Europe. Every year there is the Aging Europe report, which looks at the lives of older people in the EU. The latest one is the 2020 edition. This report looks at all different kinds of aspects. So from employment to health to anything really. But for this specific purpose here, the data on digital literacy of older people is mainly coming from the annual community survey on ICT usage in households and by individuals. And the 3 key findings in this area of the 2020 report is that there is still a digital divide between age groups in terms of access and use of modern communication technologies. But it also shows that older people are generally closing the digital divide. So there is still a slow uptake in using digital technology, but the divide becomes smaller over time. But what we do still see is a big gender divide. So that there is, on average, women have lower digital skills compared to men in the older age groups. And one potential explanation could be that because in a lot of older people, men were the ones who are employed outside of the home, where they were more dealing with technology in their work lives. So that this could be one example for that. And another thing is that factors in that women grow older than men. So in the older age groups, we do have more women. So that also has a factor then that there is this gender divide. Because if we look at younger age groups, the gender divide is actually much lower, and in certain age groups, barely visible compared to older people. Looking at some specific numbers, you will see in all the different graphics in the EU, in these numbers, there is two different age groups that are, I think, of relevance. So I tried to extract them. One is the age group 55 to 64, and the other one is 65 to 74. Unfortunately, we do not have data on older people than that for this specific survey, which is a real pity, and it is something that Age Platform has also been advocating for a long time, to have data also on older people than just 74. But unfortunately, we have to work with the restrictions we have at this point. These are the two age groups that I'll be able to show you. So looking at the people that have never used a computer in the age group 55 to 64, in most EU member states, as I mentioned, women were more likely than their male counterparts to never have used a computer. Funnily, the opposite is true in some countries. In Estonia, Ireland, Finland, Sweden, and Hungary, actually the opposite is true. Why is not entirely clear, but it's an interesting little fact. And what you can also see here in this graphic is that in basically all in the EU overall, so on the very left side, you always see the EU accumulated data and then split per the European countries, that there has actually been an increase in people that use computers between 2008 and 2017. So there's a lower share of people that have never used a computer in this age group in 2017 than there was in 2008. The same is actually true for the older age group from 65 to 74. There's also more people now have used in 2017 a computer than in 2008. But still, more than 2/5 of this age group had never used a computer, which is quite a high number. And if we look at Greece, it's actually a little bit higher even than the EU average there. This is just an overview as well, where we see that in the countries we have men who have a bit lower rates than women in the age group 55 to 74. Here they are put together. And when looking at the internet use in the last 3 months, in this graphic, you will see the general population, which is defined as 16 to 74. As I mentioned, unfortunately, nothing above that. And with the in orange, the 65 to 74-year-olds, and in yellow, the 55 to 64-year-olds. And we can see that older people aged 65 to 74 were 3 times as likely as all adults not to have used the internet in the last 3 months. And this gap between the generation was particularly marked in southern, eastern, and Baltic EU member states. So for example, in Bulgaria and Greece, the share of older people was 47 percentage points higher than the share for the whole of the adult population, which you can also see here. It's quite a stark difference still. Another indicator to use at digital literacy is above basic overall digital skills. And I'm quickly going to look at this indicator from what is meant by that, because it is actually based on the theoretical framework that I talked about earlier, the digital competency framework. So this specific indicator above basic overall digital skills was developed in cooperation with users based on the digital competence framework on the aspects of information, communication, problem solving, and software skills. And the indicator means that you have to show the ability to accomplish a range of different activities within each of these 4 areas. And to just give you an idea of what is actually asked in practice. So for information and data literacy, to show that you are able to do something, you would have to be able to copy or move a file or a folder. In terms of communication, you have to be able to send and receive emails, as an example. For problem solvings, are you able to change the settings of any software, including an operational system or security program? And for digital content creation, an example is, are you able to use word processing software? So this is how the theoretical framework also has and is used in the statistics for this. And if you go back and looking at the above basic overall digital skills, you can see here there is still, as for most of these indicators, quite a bit of a difference between the overall population and the older population. But also to clarify, this above basic overall digital skills is quite advanced. So this already means that you are quite capable, actually. So this is also why the numbers are relatively low across all the different age groups. And then if we look at internet activities, meaning different activities that can be performed on the internet. And in this specific, the question was asked, have you used the internet for private purposes during the last 3 months? And what of these things have you done? Then you can see that sending and receiving emails was the most common activity among older people in the EU for this. And as for a lot of the other data, we see comparing 2009 and 2019, there's an increase across all age groups between 2009 and 2019. We do have across all the different activities lower rates in the older age groups than in the overall population, but they are really catching up. And then another indicator is on social network participation. So you see that less than 1/5 of older people aged 65 to 75 actually participated in social networks, compared with over half of all older adults. And last but not least, something that is also something that we look at in the FAITH project that was mentioned by Chelsea earlier on transacting online. What is the use of purchasing things on the internet in the last 12 months? And there we see that there is under 30% of the 65 to 74-year-olds have made a purchase via the internet in the last 12 months overall in Europe. That's actually all from my side of the presentation. I know it's quite a bit of information, so I also wanted to leave some time for questions and discussions. So please let me know if there is anything that you would like to know or any comments that you may have.
Thank you, Vera, for the presentation. So as I see, Mr. Ferhat brought up, right? That's a question. You have to.
Yeah, yes. Okay. Hello to all, and thank you for the presentation and for all the information. Mine is not a comment, but just a question. Do you have a breakdown of the of which platforms they use on the social media? Is Facebook still going strong?
In this report, unfortunately, there is no breakdown according to different social media platforms.
Okay, thank you.
Miss Gülüstü Salur. You have to unmute yourself.
Sorry. Thank you very much, Vera. This was a great presentation, a lot of data to process. We will dwell more deeply on this. I have a very simple question. What is the biggest single most important barrier against older people using technology comfortably? If you could change one thing in those educational programs, what would that be?
So this is something that would come from me now, not from the report, actually. I do actually think it's changing your mindset of that older people are able to use technology and that it is useful for them to do so. Because I think it really is the first fact. If I don't think that it is for me, then I will never seek out a training. I will never even try it out. I mean, there's lots of other factors, such as finances, that might be an issue if I can't afford a smartphone, for example. But I do think that the ageist mindset that we have, and every single one of us has, in thinking technology is not for older people, I think that is something that is probably also the hardest to overcome. Because for a lot of other things, you can see to have funding, or you can have support from others. But if there is no interest because a person thinks that they don't need it, or they don't want it, or they can't do it, I think that is the most difficult thing.
I have another question. Thank you very much, Vera. This may also go to Chelsea or anyone else in the audience who might have a reply. Have you had a chance to compare face-to-face education against watching YouTube videos for educational purposes, or other more passive resources for education? How does it compare?
I assume this is, I guess, for me. How does it compare? Actually, I don't know. The only thing I can tell you from experience is how difficult it was, and how much more challenging doing online courses rather than face-to-face. It's very difficult, especially when your audience isn't don't have the best skills, computer skills. I'm afraid I didn't quite answer your question, but I really don't have any other experience.
Thank you. Actually, it was at another level. Even on Zoom, it would be like face-to-face education, because you're interacting online continuously. What I meant was we prepare videos that are available on resources like YouTube and Vimeo, and people can passively seek these videos and make a search and find how do you get to your electronic health records, or how do you do an Instagram video live presentation. So there are several videos available like that. And actually our project program includes development of videos that could be used for these purposes. But my take on this is that people don't really go for passive learning. The first thing is being motivated to use something. I remember last year when we lost several loved ones to COVID and other diseases. People went on Zooms for, sharing their condolences. That was a big motivation not to leave their loved ones alone in their so, and in terms of telemedicine, electronic health services, people end up saying, no, I can't do this, but they have to, because they can't go to the hospitals. So they have to start using Zoom or WhatsApp video conferences and such. So one needs to be motivated, and one needs to have a guide in taking care of that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. By the way, part of the digital project that we are running right now also includes a platform, a learning platform, where there's educational materials and so on for the participants to go on, like for passive learning, like you said, with videos, instructions, and so on. They don't seem to like it. They, I don't know, it's exactly this phase of the project. I don't have concrete evidence, but I really don't think that they engage in it very much. They like socializing. Socializing is part of the fun. It's part of the process, and they need that. But if it's the only way, I mean, what can you do?
Well, the thing is, we have to put in so much effort to develop those educational materials. And, you know, there's tons of data. It's like, you know, some academic research, garbage in, garbage out. There's so much on the web that are not being used. Our association has a YouTube channel, and we have developed so many videos for the pandemic. You know, their quality and, you know, their content may be questionable for some people. But, you know, there are so few people that actually go on and watch those. One-on-one, face-to-face, social, even with medical visits, people want to socialize during doctor's visits, especially with elderly people. So when we are working on our project, we have to think more on this, developing on the videos. Maybe we should develop the videos for the younger generations who are going to be doing the face-to-face education. So those educational materials would support the trainers rather than the trainees. Thank you. Thank you.
Mrs. Yusum Telek is next.
Hello for everyone. My question for Chelsea. I wonder that did you measure the learning level of the older people after your trainings? If you used, what kind of methods you have chosen, and it was effective, and can I take your some comments about it?
Sorry, I was muted. Okay, depending on the project and the aims of each project, some projects just aim to basic computer skills, and others to advanced computer skills. So depending on the project aim of the project's aims, we had different evaluation tools. What we were looking for was the increase of level of confidence in using a computer. Of course, the skills that were developed. And what else was it?
Did you use questionnaires, or you try to?
No, we use questionnaires. We use questionnaires, yes.
Monitoring or kind of?
At the beginning of the project, during the project, and at the end of the project. That's our basic.
Pre-test.
Yeah, that's what we do. Just
Okay.
So I guess it's I don't have a concrete answer for you, because it really depends on the project each time. But yes, questionnaires.
Okay, thank you.
For the evaluation of the process.
Thank you, Chelsea.
You're
And
welcome.
also, I want to ask to Vera, you told about the European Digital Competence Framework. How can we use this framework for the old people trainings content, or should we use it? Because frameworks are generally give some subjects to make it general content, but if we want to use it, how can we do this for trainings or you used it for this aim?
I think the framework is really helpful in giving impulses of what are the things that could be taught, or which skills could be relevant in the trainings. Because I think sometimes when we think about digital literacy for older people, maybe everybody has a specific thing in mind. One person might think about smartphone use with WhatsApp, another person might think, oh, health data. The framework helps, I find, to be a bit more systematic in understanding what could be the different things that could be taught. And also because it provides the different examples of what are the things that a person should ideally be able to do, such as operating a web browser and finding specific information on a website. Then I think this is really helpful to also sometimes for people who are very digital literate to take a step back and think, okay, maybe this is something that I take for granted everybody can do anyways, but maybe this is where I should start at this level. So I think for the training programs, it's not necessary to take all the different aspects of the theoretical framework, but I think it can provide good impetus on what could be taught in specific trainings.